They said small towns would be easy targets. They had low populations and weak infrastructure. There was one transmission tower on the hill and a water tank with the town's name painted in white. They believed the hardest part would be keeping dust off the optics and smoke off the camera drones. Boots hit dirt at 0812 local time. The light fell off, thin and honest. You could see every mistake in light like that. We landed in a clover field next to a set of aluminium bleachers. Behind them was a small brick building with a green roof. Its windows were painted with handprint turkeys and a paper chain that stretched the length of the glass. There was a bell tower without a bell. Lines of hopscotch chalk marked the asphalt. The air smelled of cut grass and diesel. "Secure the perimeter," I said. "No fire until I identify hardpoints." We walked past a mural of a smiling sun and 5 stick figures holding hands. The sun's smile was chipped at the edges. The first locals came from the far street. They wore plaid shirts and ball caps. A woman in an apron had flowers still on her hands. They should have run. They did not. They moved like people who had made decisions in a kitchen or on a porch. Their faces were tight and set. They stood shoulder to shoulder with old men and teenagers who had the same eyes. We had the advantage. We took it. The first volley took down 3 of them and sent the rest behind pickup trucks. They returned fire with rifles that shouldn't have worked against composite plates. They found the gaps anyway. A man in boots shot twice, and tapped a 3rd round against his rifle as if waking it up, then put the next shot into Hazar's throat. Hazar gurgled and fell silent. The man looked at him for a long moment, nodded like 2 neighbors who had finished building a fence, and ducked again. We pushed forward. They pushed back. We took the intersection at Maple and 3rd, but lost it 30 minutes later when someone with a church key flipped a barricade into our flank. The woman with the apron had a hammer. She used it as if she intended to build something afterward. "On me!" I said, as we crossed a parking lot marked with orange cones that made a crooked racecourse. A sign read, "Field Day Friday" in block letters. The wind swung a plastic hoop along the chain-link fence. The hoop ticked each bar in turn. We were winning. They had numbers, but without armor, numbers don't mean much. We cut their line at a row of raised garden beds. Tomatoes hung heavy and ripe. Dirt surrounded a flag that said, "Go Tigers." The flag featured a tiger drawn by a happy child, complete with claws. We held the garden beds for 7 minutes. In that time, we learned these people didn't think of themselves as easy targets. A man in a varsity jacket from 20 years ago shouldered a door like a battering ram. He should not have known where to push. He did anyway. When we pulled him off Kerriat, he looked both proud and terrified, just like many soldiers I have known. "Clear," Vrissa said, before taking a round through her visor from somewhere unseen. It exploded into glitter that smelled like burning wire. She sat down hard and did not get up. We rotated to the schoolyard. There were slides in bright colors, monkey bars, and painted footprints that showed small bodies where to line up. A wave of people I had not expected came through the gym doors. Not more armed men or deputies in brown, women with whistles, and a man with a clipboard. They moved as a unit. They wore bright shirts with words in looping script. One shirt read, "Recess Duty." Another read, "Coach K." They didn't have guns. They had whistles and a voice that could command a crowd. "Whistles?" someone muttered. It sounded like a prayer. It sounded like a joke. "Hold fire," I said. The whistles blew once, sharp enough to cut the air in half. Every head turned toward the playground. Not ours. Theirs. A girl in a yellow dress stepped out from behind the slide. Dirt streaked her knees. A bandage with a cartoon puppy wrapped her elbow. She looked at us like we were lost dogs. She gazed past us to the parking lot, the bleachers, the cones, and the crooked racecourse. She had a scuff across her cheek as if she'd brushed against gravel. She had a smile that tried to be brave and almost succeeded. She raised her hand. "Ready," she said, as if taking attendance. And then everything changed. The men by the truck stood up. The woman with the hammer put it down and wiped her hands on her apron. The man in the varsity jacket blinked at the blood in his fingers and frowned, as if he had touched sap. In the street behind them, bodies that had been lifeless found their feet. The chest wounds were still open. Their shirts were still torn. Necklines were stained and sticking. The eyes were clear. There were no holes in them. They dusted themselves off. They picked up their hats. They stepped around our dead and our almost dead with a care that tightened my stomach. They lined up along the painted footpaths like they had done 1,000 times before. The whistles blew again. The whole crowd turned toward the doors. "Stand fast," I said, but it came out wrong. I didn't have the words for what we were witnessing. Orders need words. I had none. They walked past us, not through us, past us, like we were the weather. A little boy in a muddy shirt pulled his friend by the sleeve. "Come on," he said. "Now make us stay in." He limped as if his knee hurt, but smiled as if it did not matter much. The last of them moved by in pairs, hand in hand. The man with the clipboard counted by tapping his pencil against it. He never looked at us. He checked something in a neat box. Halfway across the yard, the girl in the yellow dress turned. She lifted her hand and wiggled her fingers, shy but proud to be brave. She aimed the wave at me. I don't know why. Maybe I looked like I needed it. "This was the best recess ever," she said. "Let's play again." The teachers smiled along with her. One ruffled her hair. The bell rang from deep inside the brick building. I realized then that the bell had not rung all morning. Not once. The day felt like it was held open, like a lung at the top of a breath. The sound rolled flat across the yard, over our helmets, and into the far field where the tractors waited with their sun-faded paint. They went inside. We remained. We couldn't leave. Our wounded stayed wounded. Our dead stayed dead. The wind blew down the row of garden flags, making it sound like someone trying not to cry. We retreated to the bleachers. We set the perimeter according to the book. We checked each other's seals and pushed gauze into places where it couldn't help. The clover field crushed beneath us. Green on red. We watched the doors close with a soft metal click. "Report!" command said in my ear. I looked at my hands. They shook. I forced them to stop. I placed them on my thighs and felt them tremble. "Engagement ended," I said. "Locals disengaged at signal. Casualties were heavy." "Enemy casualties?" I looked at the empty yard and the trail of small muddy footprints on the floor wax that caught the light. "Undetermined," I said. They stood up. Silence at the far end of the line. Then, "Say again." "They stood up," I said, and it felt like a language I did not know. We waited. We listened to the hum of the little building. We watched the paper chain in the window move every time the air conditioner kicked on. We heard the small sounds of school, a chair leg scraping, a pencil against a desk, and a voice saying something that sounded like, "Okay, eyes up here." "Fall back to the ship," I said. "We are not equipped for this." No one argued. We crossed the clover. We carried who we could and marked those we could not. We left our dead under the bleachers because the ship couldn't take us all, and the field couldn't take one more hard thing. The sun stayed honest to the last step. The ship door closed. The seals hissed. The world faded away. It didn't feel like escape. It felt like someone had closed a book on my fingers. We lifted off. We left dust and clover and a line of tiny orange cones, laid out like a path to a better place. I spent the flight in the med cradle, looking at the sky for a scratch in the bulkhead's paint. The scratch was a thin crescent. It resembled a smile that didn't reach the eyes. I thought about the bell. I told myself it was a code. I told myself there were logistics, drugs, and technology, and that there would be a report with diagrams that would fix it. I told myself many things. They all felt like a hand patting a helmet. They all felt like a whistle. "Okay, everyone, circle time," Mrs. Alvarez said and clapped once. "Voices off, eyes up here." We sat on the rug with the blue border and the letters. A little rocket ship was in one corner. Someone had coloured the ship's window with a crayon last week. Mrs. Alvarez had said, "We don't colour the rug." But she smiled a little. My knees were dirty. I had a scrape on my elbow with a puppy bandage. The puppy had sunglasses and a skateboard. I touched it to check if it was still stuck. It was. "Who wants to share about recess?" Mrs. Alvarez asked. My hand shot up before I even thought about it. "Lucy," she said, "go ahead." "It was the best," I said, and my voice felt big. "We played a brand new game. It was called Aliens." There were oohs and ahs. Someone whispered, "Cool." Coach K leaned against the door and pretended he wasn't listening. He was listening. "What were the rules?" Miss Alvarez asked and pushed her glasses up her nose. "They land in the grass," I explained. "They have big boots. They go stomp stomp. They have robots and cameras, and their eyes look like they never sleep even when they do. We can go wherever we want, hide behind trucks, make fortresses, and climb the jungle gym. You can jump off the jungle gym in this game because it is a game." Maya raised her hand without waiting. "Did anyone get hurt?" "Only normal stuff," I said. "Like when I fell off my bike on the cul-de-sac, and Dad said it was a good fall because I kept my hands out. Like that. Max got a nosebleed, but that's because he picked it." "Hey," Max said, covering his nose with both hands. Everyone laughed. Even Max giggled a little through his hands. "What did you do when someone called you out?" Miss Alvarez asked. "You go down," I said. "You count slow. You wait your turn. If someone says you're out but they didn't tag you, or if you feel weird about it, you look for a grown-up and they help. If a grown-up is busy, you take a breath and try again. That's the second rule." "What's the first rule?" she asked. "Say it," Coach K said, tapping the poster on the wall with a tiger that looked like a cat. "Keep everyone safe," we said together, just like the morning pledge. "What happened at the end?" Miss Alvarez asked. "The bell," I said. "You have to stop when the bell rings because if you don't stop when the bell rings, you get a look and no one wants the look." Everyone nodded. No one wanted the look. "Anything else?" she asked. I thought about the man with the funny boots who looked like a turtle that had lost its shell. I remembered how he stared when I waved. I thought he looked like my dad did once when he saw the ocean for the first time. "I waved," I said. "He looked sad. I wanted him to feel better, so I waved." "What did he do?" Miss Alvarez asked. "He didn't know what to do," I said, "so I waved more." "That was kind," she said, and her voice softened. "Kindness first, even in games." I liked when she said that. It made my chest feel warm. "Can we play again tomorrow?" I asked. "We can be the other team next time so they can have a turn at winning." Coach K coughed into his fist. Miss Alvarez bit her lip to keep from smiling too big. "We'll see," she said. "It depends on the weather and if everyone finishes their math. Also, we need new chalk. The hopscotch is half gone." "I can bring chalk," Maya said. "We have a big bucket." "Thank you," Miss Alvarez said, writing chalk on the board. She drew a little box next to it, as she always did. She'd check it later, and it would feel like we did something grown up. I looked down at my knees. The dirt had dried into little maps. I poked one, and it cracked and fell into a river in my sock. I liked that. "Okay," Miss Alvarez said. "Partner read. Take turns. Helpers, please pass out the bags." We got our book bags from the crate. Mine had a sticker with a rainbow that was peeling at one corner. I pressed it down. The corner stuck for now. I sat with Max. He breathed through his mouth a little, and his hair stuck up like he had been shot by a cloud. "Your nose," I said. He shrugged. "It's fine." He opened the book to the page with the dog who found his way home. The dog had big eyes and a spot over one. The dog looked happy. The dog looked like every dog I had ever drawn. "Ready?" he asked. "Ready," I said. We read. Outside the window, the clover swayed in the wind. Someone had left 3 orange cones in a line across the grass. They looked like a path to somewhere that wasn't school, but still felt like school. The paper chain along the glass breathed when the air turned on and out when it turned off. In the far corner of the rug, someone's shoelace had come loose, and he was trying to tie it without anyone noticing. He looked like a baby deer taking its first step. He almost got it. He did not. He tried again. The bell would ring again in 2 hours for lunch. We would wash our hands. We would sing the Clean Hands song, even though we were big now. We would eat carrot sticks that tasted like the garden when you pulled them up and wiped them on your shirt. I thought about the man with the boots one more time. I hoped he finished his math. I hoped he had someone to wave at him. I decided to wave again tomorrow just in case. Coach K looked out the door window at the field. He didn't write anything down. He didn't need to. He was a grown-up. He would remember. Miss Alvarez clapped once. "Eyes up," she said. "Good reading, friends." We looked up. We smiled because she was proud. The room held the sound of pages just closed. It felt like a secret you were allowed to keep. It felt like a game that does not stop when the bell rings, even though it does.